Bernsey,
How you doing, man?
not too bad. You got a camera figured out over there?
Yeah, it's coming. Hang on. You're dealing with an older dude here. Hang on. There we go.
Yeah.
How's that?
How's it going?
I'm good. Where are you sitting right now? You look like you're in a classroom or something.
I just finished a school day and I stole the boardroom, and I'm worried that somebody else is set up in here to do something else, because for the first time ever in this room, we got a phone out on the desk, like legit. We've got a computer that I had to scooch aside so that I could hog the outlet. And I'm wondering if somebody else had an after-school plan in this room.
Just bully him.
And so I might have to kind of tell them, hey, sorry, this is going to take a while, or I might have to take you for a walk, maybe back to my classroom. But
no worries. We can always take
lighting's good in here. What's that?
No worries. We can take 5 if you need to. Just let me know.
Yeah, not a problem.
Everything's good on your end, man.
Yeah, everything's good. And so super excited to have you. Appreciate you joining the show, the podcast, whatever we call it, the project. And to discuss some pretty important issues, ones that I'm very passionate about discussing, ones that you've discussed and have been known to tackle yourself, both on your own and publicly.
Yes.
And that hometown connection, Dryden, Ontario, born, and it's just awesome to finally get a chance to speak to you. I of course watched your video then when it came out. I was looking at the date on that. That was 2014 or 2012.
Yeah.
I remember watching it then, but then of course you reached out to me looking to get involved, and so thank you so much. And how are you doing?
Good. You know what? Absolutely, man. I really appreciate, first of all, having me on, and I appreciate even more so what you're doing with this. I remember it's been 7 years now since I did that video, but I think that was a turning point for me personally. Because it was still kind of, I hate using the word stigma because it's so overused, but it was still a pretty hidden thing in 2014, where we've come in 6 short/long years. It's come a long way. It's become a much more normal discussion now, and I think it's extra important that right now, as we kind of come over that big hurdle of getting it into the public, that guys like you continue to keep it out there and to force it into people's minds and into their vision, because I think a lot of people who maybe watch my video associate with my age group. A lot of times we forget that this is from teenage years up when it really becomes a legit thing for people. So I think the more faces we can have out there covering all those different ages and ranges and continually bringing this up, as each generation comes up, it's going to become more and more of a normal discussion. So I tip of the hat to you for doing this and kind of just keeping this discussion open, because it's a discussion that needs to stay open to keep evolving, I believe, strongly.
Of course. And you and I both in our own private discussions can attest to the impact it makes, and whether it's an inbox message or somebody telling you their story, or the water cooler conversation of somebody kind of saying, hey, that resonates, like me or my friend or my brother, my sister. Everyone's got something, whether it be directly or indirectly surrounding all these topics. And so
it's true, and that's I think that's kind of the next stage of all this, is where it used to be. I think when I say used to be, I talked 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when I was dipping my toe in the pool for the first time. But it used to be such a hush hush thing that you'd rarely. It's the best way to put it. Like you'd know if your own self was dealing with it. You'd have an idea if maybe someone close to you was dealing with it. But then, as I've grown through this in my own journey, hate that word as well, because, but through my own experiences with this, I now can sit back and I start to think about people I know of, whether they're hockey people. They don't have to be great friends, just people I've been around a few times, and I can start to. I wonder if so and so maybe was going through some stuff, and you start to you can't. It's a very tough. Mental health is a tough thing to do because there's so many different branches of it, and no two cases are the same, so to speak. It's each person's individual experience, but you start to see some similarities in how people appear outwardly when they're struggling inwardly, and so it's like, I guess, anything else. If you start doing it long enough, you get better at it. And and that, on one side, that's, I get better at handling my own day-to-day dealings, but I've also gotten a lot better at reading other people's, and probably 50-50 now, in regards to people coming to me and saying, hey, I'm going through my own stuff, and the other 50% is now me saying to someone, hey, you doing all right? Like,
Right.
and it might just be a guy I coach youth hockey with here in Dallas, and I'm just like, this guy's always, he's always outwardly trying to be funny, and but
Mhm.
he's, you just start to recognize these things in others. So it's become something that, it was the very start of this, it was everyone was coming to me because they felt safe, because I had done it, and I'd give them a private outlet to come to me. And now I've seen it enough and dealt with it enough that I have started to reach out to other people, and very rarely am I wrong. So it's just real important that we continue to push the bar on, because not everyone's going to come to guys like you and I, or they might never be able to talk about it. So to be able to recognize some parts of it is really important too, as well.
Well, while keeping in mind that we're all the same, right?
Right.
Whether it be gender, race, sexuality,
Yep.
dealing with stress, anxiety, and issues and problems that we all face,
For
in
sure.
stepping inside to face your own, that, well, I'm not the only one dealing with this.
Yeah.
And so, it's you acknowledging yourself, which allows you then to acknowledge how other people are feeling, might be feeling, could possibly be feeling.
Yep.
And your own compassion to yourself allows you to show that compassion and concern for others.
Yeah,
Um,
it is. And you know what? It's a tricky thing to figure out, because it's not like I nothing against cancer, but I mean, cancer survivors tend to really support new cancer victims.
of course.
um, and but they're coming from a place of, I beat it,
Mhm.
to now I can tell you how I beat it, how you can beat it. I don't think you can beat mental health. I think it's something we need to learn to manage, and to work through. But I don't think any of us is ever going to be mental health free and ring a bell.
Yes.
And so you got to be careful. Every little bit of yourself that you give out to these people and helping, it does add a little bit of weight to yourself as well, because now of 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 people that are in the back of your mind. Hey, I wonder how so and so's doing. And so, and when I finally first decided within my inner circle to trust them and tell them how I was feeling, probably back in 2010, shortly before I went to Homewood in Guelph for 60 days into the inpatient depression mood disorder program. The first time when I spoke to those like 6 people, my parents, my wife, it lifted a weight off me, and the 6 of them took, a little chunk of that weight.
Right.
Just that little bit of relief gave me, some energy to then pursue, you know, my own health with it and stuff. But that was a huge part of it for me. The thing you need to be careful with when you start doing what you and I are doing is that we've dropped a lot of that weight in sharing our own experiences, but we take on a little bit of weight every single time we now help someone else. And if you don't keep that weight balance, you can quickly find yourself overwhelmed back to a point where you start to ignore your own health for the sake of others, because you feel like that's, you brought that on, you've asked for that. And so I think the self-management part of it, the selfishness side of it, is very important once you go down this road that we've chosen to go on to, to bring awareness and help others and become a resource. So
Right.
yeah.
Now, I mean, that said, of course, in encouraging people to reach out and seek help and stuff like that, I know that personally, that's a reason I say don't go to my mom at a particular time, right? I don't want to put my baggage on her. I don't want her to
Sure.
carry any weight.
Yep.
That said, me, and my mom's relationship, she's invited me to let me put weight on her, lean on
Yep.
her,
Yep.
right? And so, you know, in the case of somebody carrying too many bags,
Yeah.
right? Give me a bag, right? I have a hand, or I got a finger. I can hang a grocery bag off a pinky. Like,
Sure.
we lean on each other. We all do. And oftentimes, there's the situation where, I lean on you, I put that weight on you, but by the end of our talk, like all that weight
Yeah.
has, because really all we just needed to do was connect and to
Sure.
speak. And
Yeah, we
so,
dissipate a lot of it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so then it's the weight's lifted off both parties. And so, um, making sure everyone's leaning on the supports around them, and if not, seeking others. But a quick rundown, quick introduction. We haven't even really done a proper introduction. We kind of just got into
Right into it.
right away. Let's hear about, you said you hate journey, you hate stigma, both of which words we'll be hearing about in the talk, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
tell me about, you had an amazing story coming up, growing up in Dryden and then beyond, and eventually enduring a few struggles, and then
Yeah.
kind of winding up here. But let's hear about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll nutshell it. It's not really a story. It's a tough
It's a
story.
Netflix series.
Right. You know what I mean? It's kind of an unbelievable story, just out of Dryden, and then, hockey being basically my only outlet. And for a lot of kids, I think it's still one of the only real, solid outlets out of small towns now is to get into a sport or things like that. And that was my outlet. And I wound up in Thunder Bay on the Flyers, and then down to Denver University on a scholarship. And my second year at Denver was at the wrong place at the wrong time in a nightclub playing pool, and a big gang fight broke out. And me and the four other Canadians doing what Canadians do, or let's break this up, hey, that's it, 2-on-1, that's not fair. And then I got myself stabbed multiple times, and the I don't like saying that ended my career. I probably could have done a little bit more to come back, but the physical comeback from that was a couple years, and then the mental side of it just wasn't there to really chase the game anymore. So in a way it ended my career. But looking back now with a few more years of knowledge, I think that I could have reset and gone back. I was only 22, 23, so I still had some good years left in me. So anyway, I moved on from that, and I got into some pro wrestling and some cage fighting, and all. I think doing a team sport my whole life and relying on teammates, and I just wanted to do something that was just a me thing, so I started with boxing, and then wrestling, and then cage fighting, and all bad decisions, all bad physical decisions. Now that I'm 47, and I got to rock to get out of bed in the morning and stuff. But it's all part of who I am now, and what got me here. And then about 10 years ago, I just really started feeling shitty. And I didn't recognize it as mental. I just didn't feel myself, wasn't the same guy. And then I started doing some, just looking into things, and I thought, this depression thing, it kind of fits. And then from there, fast forward a couple more years, about 2011, I hit rock bottom. Substance abuse, anything I could put in me to make me feel better for the next however many hours I would. And then it kind of hit rock bottom, and I got in. Luckily, I had the support system behind me, financially as well, with my parents, to get me into Homewood and go off into that 60-day course. And I believe it saved my life. I don't want to give it all the credit. I had to do a lot of work, soul searching and figuring myself out as well. It gave me the tools. It wasn't aha, voila, you're fixed. They gave me some really incredible tools and self-realization methods and things like that. So it's enabled me and I'm still developing it, tweaking it, but it's my own mental health plan. And I start now to, probably 50% of the time I'm rolling pretty good. And then 25% of the time I can feel it coming on. And so I now have a list of things when I can feel that blue set coming in. I just kind of go back to my checklist, and I make sure I'm getting up at a certain time. I make sure I'm jumping in the shower, making your bed, just little wins, right? You got to start your day with little wins, a couple little wins. And then I can, about 25% of the time, I can fend that off before it sets in. And then there's sometimes when I just wake up some days and I'm like, oh man, shit, it's back, it's here. And then just being able to apply the experience and the knowledge of myself being able to be, forgive myself for just spending a day in bed, watch a couple movies, not be productive whatsoever, and being able to, have my own self dialogue that, hey, I know exactly what this is. I've been here before. I know if I do these certain things, by the end of the week, it'll start to lift, and so it's just been a long bunch of years of just figuring myself out. And, you're working with your own brain. It's figuring you out too. It's figuring out new ways to surprise you and submarine you and pull you back down sometimes. So it's a tricky thing because it's a living entity that you're battling against. It just happens to be in your own body. So, it's been a long 10 years, but it's been a very productive 10 years. And a lot of things I've figured out about myself that a lot of people don't, and when they don't, they suffer long, they suffer hard, and it can end tragically. So I consider myself one of the lucky ones, but I also have the realization that if you're in this situation, you need to work like anything else. Bikini model or a professional bodybuilder, just by wanting it, you have to put in the work and you have to do the right thing. So I feel very strongly that with mental health, for those of us who have been cursed with, a brain that doesn't like to get along with us sometimes, I think we need to be prepared to put in the work to get through those tough times. So it's been a long stretch of self-realization, and this works and this doesn't work, and doing what I can to help others along in it, and then knowing when to take time away and pump the brakes a bit and take care of myself. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's a few other zigs and zags along there, but that's for another conversation.
Of course, right. And so on your way to becoming an NHLer, and the accident happened, which forced you into something else. You found your way into wrestling. You're paying for that now, a few ice bags or a few achy joints in the morning, I'm sure. But so do you believe it's something that you kind of maybe minorly had as you were going through, or was there a time when it kind of started? And what do you think? Where do you think it kind of came from?
Like in what way? Like where do you think
So do you think there was a point in your life? It's just so fascinating and interesting to me because I think there's so many people. Everyone's in their own spot, whether it's they're going through a really really tough time, or maybe they're going through a really really good time, or it's kind of wavy in between. But I feel like I've come to like a realization, like, man, like you're never truly out of the weeds. Nobody is exempt from and so maybe as say like a younger guy, you were naive to thinking that could have been you, but then there might have been a time when that led into, oh man, like now I'm here, right? And so I'm just kind of wondering, is it something that maybe you had a little bit of all along, and then came to a realization that, like, I've had enough of this, I'm gonna deal with it? Or is it something that came at a specific period, do you think?
Yeah, you know what? That's a great question, because I've asked myself that numerous times, and looking back through, being younger and stuff. And I remember being pretty happy as a kid. I don't remember, that it's a tough question. I think, honestly, I think the stabbing part of it had a lot to do with it. I think, I think I'm a pretty strong-minded guy. I got stabbed, and it is what it is. I'm not like, oh, it's some divine intervention, or, I was in a bar, shit went south, I was in the way, I got stabbed, and I move on from there. So I'm pretty good at rationalizing even the most bizarre things in my own head. But I think what probably happened was, I think my first dip into mental health was probably some PTSD after the stabbing.
Right.
But 1994. I mean, PTSD, I don't even know if they had it then, right? I mean, you might have it in rookie career in 94, but it was just such a new thing. So no one was even around to say, oh, you might want to check this kid's head out after he gets past all the physical stuff, because, holding your own guts in the middle of the bar while there's a gang brawl is probably not a normal thing, for a brain, a 22-year-old brain or a 19-year-old brain to deal with. Right. So I think what probably happened is that PTSD thing kind of festered in there for 15, 20 years. And it was chipping away and it was chipping away and it was chipping away. And then kind of as I got past all the distractions I was throwing into my life, with whether that's wrestling or fighting or drinking or drugs or what, once I finally grew up, all of a sudden it was there knocking a little louder. And I think it just kind of segued into depression because I wasn't having nightmares about it. I wasn't having flashbacks and nothing. Like there was no like aha signals there that, that was a thing. But having done a ton of research and stuff on the effects of PTSD and on soldiers and things like that, I think that was probably the moment where what I thought was a pretty solid brain maybe took a few chinks in the armor.
Right.
And then it just kind of rotted and festered and rotted and festered until I got to a point in my life where I didn't have a bunch of other distractions going on in my life or things I could, run to the bar 6 nights a week or whatever. You constantly, numbing yourself from things. And all of a sudden I was at a point in my life with kids and everything else. We're like, should be happy. Why the hell am I not happy here? And then, and so by then it had its hooks in me and I was where I was. So, I was fortunate enough. I'm fortunate enough, I think, I don't consider myself smart, but I consider myself wise. And I was wise enough to realize that path was going in a bad direction. And I was fortunate enough to have parents who could financially afford, to get me 3 days later into a thing that had a 2-year waiting period, because you could get into Homewood for free through the government program, but the waiting list is years, right? And then they always kept a couple beds for straight cash pay. And I got one of those, this was Saturday and I got one Monday or Tuesday morning in Guelph. So just at the right time kind of thing, and got in there. And, they, first week was tough because I felt like I was locked in there. I felt like, my family had kind of ratted me out and locked me up in this place and stuff. I mean, I was free to go at any given time, but just, when you got people giving you medication and you're surrounded by, I still consider myself a pretty functioning human being.
Right.
And I got into this group of 30 people, and 25 of them were as bad as it gets. They weren't allowed to have their own toothbrush in the room because they would sharpen it. You know what I mean? Like they're high suicide risk. They were badly medicated. And here I was pretty high functioning. I felt mentally like shit, but I was physically in good shape. I was still very, outgoing and talkative and worked well with others. And, I wasn't all drawn into my own. And also it was a weird spot to be in where I'm like, okay, I'm bad, but these people are really, really bad. So I began to question, I'm like, am I closer to where I believe I am, or am I closer to this stage, And so I questioned the whole thing. And I questioned my parents. I questioned my wife. I'm like, what did you guys put me in here? Because I'm not this, and then after the first week, they kind of segmented me out into more of a higher functioning scenario and group. And then it snowballed from there, just real positive stuff. And we did a few things, and I went into it like, so this role playing stuff, and I'm like, come on, man, like this role playing, what am I going to figure out here? And then half an hour later, they've got this girl in a trance on a chair, and she's bringing up all this stuff from her childhood with her father and stuff. And I'm just like, holy mac. Like, and I knew it was my turn to get in that chair one day that week. So I was like, ooh-wee, where is this going to go? But there was a couple like real surprisingly caught me off guard aha moments in that stuff. And I began to kind of, okay, build a path out of it. But long answer to your question, but I think the answer to that is probably around the time when I got stabbed. I think it was a physical segue into a psychological and mental problem.
Right. Now, as you were saying, very fortunate to be able to go so quickly to such a high, class facility, so to speak. You're paying top dollar to be there. Of course, not everyone has access to that.
Right.
Do you believe that what you learned there is pretty easily accessible based on the dialogue around the topic now, and just with resources online? And kind of if you're looking and you're digging, and would you say that you can, so long as you take it upon yourself to and that information you could, kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say it definitely is, but I also, I'm not, I'm not, I'm not going to fool myself here. I get what this disease feels like.
Right.
So it's not often the availability of information. It's the unable, you're just physically unable to go online and search for it. It seems like the biggest task in the world, so I don't, no matter how available and easily they make this information, there's still going to be that aha moment in everyone who goes through this life where they're going to have to say, you know what, I don't care how bad I feel today, I have to get up and I have to start reading for 1 hour, just start reading for 1 hour, and even though no one's exactly the same, there are similarities that you can pick out, and then you get people to look up to, okay, so this person has a very similar story to mine, I'm going to read more about that person. You start to go down the rabbit hole, and you come out the other side usually with a few answers, but it's still, it's those D-days, man, when do I take my own life, or do I suck it up, and do I do an hour of something different today to try to help myself? And I think the real focus needs to be on that first step, for people to want to be better.
Yeah.
And then I think once they get past that step, yes, the answer to your question is yes. Those resources and things like that are definitely available. Some of them though they're just much better when they're facilitated by an expert.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, I could tell people, about that role playing thing we did, but I couldn't recreate it if I had to. So it's not like, oh, try Motrin for a headache. Try role playing for depression. So yeah, shorter answer is yes, it's gotten a lot more available, and I think it's also gotten a lot more broken down, where if you went online 10 years ago, it was depression, bipolar, and maybe a couple other, well, now you can go on there and there's like depressive order with slight, you know what I mean, with it, ordering a pizza, right? Put on a double bipolar on that, and hold the anchovies. So it's really started to break down where, the big one swipe of the paintbrush doesn't cover everyone. You can, what, I think I got a little bit of this, and then there's at times, I mean, I'll go from can't get out of bed to shingling the whole house. You know what I mean? Like, so like that's not a depressive thing. That's almost like a bipolar thing, right? And I'm coming on a high, but so it's it's just a constant learning and trying to figure it out. But yeah, I do think as we've gone forward here, there's definitely much better access for it. Again, the hurdle is applying some of those things. I never would have been able to do some of those exercises in my bedroom by myself or in my office by myself. Those 5 other people that just happened to be in my group with me that week are huge factors in that, because a couple of them went first. Had I gone on Monday, maybe it's a totally different answer or totally different outcome. But I went Thursday, and so the first one freaked me out. The second one, I'm like, wow, this lady's no joke. Like, she's 2 for 2. By Wednesday, when the guy went, I was like, all right, I'm up tomorrow. I'm going to go into some deep stuff here, apparently, without even really realizing it. And then, like, boom, my hour was up on Thursday, and I was like, everyone's looking around, everyone's like, right. I was like, what did I do? So, and then gradually, then on the Friday, you'd revisit what everyone kind of talked about, and then the other people would give you feedback on what they saw, and it was just very cathartic, man. It was really cool. And probably when I looked at my 60 days, that week was like, what? Oh man, it's like, when you go to pick your last class in high school and all that's left is theater arts, and so then you wind up loving theater arts. But yeah, it was something like that. So I mean, the resources are coming, the resources are there, but still that stage one, stepping off, jumping off the dock into the water is still, I think, where we're lacking behind, and where most people struggle.
Well, I think everything that you just said there in a summed up way back to the question of the availability and such. Yes, it's all available, but you still can't deny how effective seeking professional help is. And so, we're sitting here and we're encouraging people like, hey man, like, seek help, talk to somebody, right? And next thing you know, you're talking to your parents and you're talking to people you trust, and that's very beneficial. But then you're taking it up a notch when you decide to go and speak to somebody professional and really tackle on a, you know, it's not your mom talking to you. It's not, it's the person is unbiased. They're listening to what you're saying. They're listening to your experience, everything you've been through. And so me, myself, I've, you know, been doing these videos, and I found myself continually saying, yeah, within the last year, within the last year, within the last year, I've, you know, and repeating that. And I'm like, you know, I look back, I'm like, man, I haven't been in a therapy session since March, because I was in therapy in Belfast before coming home.
Okay.
And so just last Thursday, I had my first session, and I had it with the person I was speaking with there, basically just on the premise like, hey, we already, you know, season 2 now, right? Like, I don't want to revisit. I don't want to sit down with somebody new and talk season 1. I've already got through that. Like, I'm coming to you with what's happening now, and remembering what happened through that journey with her. We get to decide what's going on now. And you know, the benefit, just sitting and talking, they're so good at just, they ask you the right questions, and then here I am, ramble, and then, you know, well, this makes sense because, and this makes sense because, and, you know, we are looking for like some validation, right? We're all looking for, you know, and so it's outlets, it's ways of, you know, speaking to somebody. It's, you know, and you know, I've found myself, if, you know, it's not even a case necessarily of venting the bad stuff. I have to get everything out. I have to share something with everyone. And which leads me to ask if you're still running your Twitter.
No.
You know?
No. Okay. So here's well, I got one more quick point to touch on what we just talked on, and then I'll answer that. I think it's really important for people to realize too, when you start to go to the medical professional side of things and getting professional help, they're not all geniuses. They're not all can all fix you. It's not a magic wand, right? And so I went through 3 or 4. And if I had based my experience on getting professional help with the first 3 or 4, I'd be like, they're quacks, man. Don't even waste your money. The first guy threw a loony on the floor and tried to hypnotize me, and he's like chanting and stuff, and I'm like, dude, it's not working, you know. And he's like, he's like, concentrate, look into my eyes, listen to my voice. I'm like, dude, this is not gonna work, right? You know. And then the second one, just kind of as I spoke, you know, the sadder things I talked about, the more they put on a sad face. And then, you know, it just was like the typical quacky line there. But then when I got 1 or 2 that connected, it's very quick, you know, like a minute or 2, and you're like, yes, okay, yes. And then they start, you're like you said, they start to pull things out of you. They're starting to finish your sentences and ask you the questions that you think, you know, and you're like, I've nailed this. So I think my only, you know, advice for someone who's ready for that step is just, if you don't get the right person first, don't stop.
Right.
You know what? I appreciate your time. Here's my payment for today's hour, but this is not for me. This is not going to work for me, and move on to someone else. And don't stop trying just because maybe the first couple aren't hits with you, because you just got to find your person. I believe when it comes to that, who gets you and can bring that stuff out of you. So that's on that. Now the Twitter side of things and stuff like that. You know what? It's tough right now because you see so many people getting in a lot of shit for stuff they tweeted and things like that, in the cancel culture and all this stuff, which I think is, you know, kind of ridiculous for things like that. But when I first started doing Twitter, a lot of it was just, I would read something funny and just repost it, and then I'd put some of my own content on there. But it was more of an outlet for me to because just going to the store would drive me crazy, right? Someone leaves their cart in the middle of the parking lot, I'm like, you know? And then someone's driving slow in the left lane, and I'm like, right? And so by the time I get home, I'm so uptight and pissed off that, you know, I can either be crabby all night, or I could vent some shit, and then I feel better, right? So it was almost a therapeutic thing for me. But I still vent it now, more or less just verbally. You know, I just say, right? You know, if someone doesn't put their cart away in the parking lot, I'm like, hey, put your cart away. Right. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they tell me what they think. But at least I've purged it. You know, so I don't carry the stuff with me and stuff. So again, it's just learning yourself and what, you know, what you can do. If someone does something really ignorant, I just say, just right on the spot, call them out on it,
Right.
and we move on with life. And I feel it does me good, and I hopefully sometimes it does them good too. And they made me realize, yeah, you know what, putting the card away is not that hard, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Just, well, and, I can recall therapy sessions with the women I speak to. And there was a time she said, well, what are you actually thinking? Right. Cause I'm putting to her, like, very politely, very whatever. She's like, tell me what you're thinking. I said, well, it's fucking ridiculous that, I
yeah,
like
yeah.
get on a roll.
Yes,
She's like, well, why didn't you, like, what, like, why wasn't it like that before? I was like, wow, I can't be like, she's like, well, no, like, you're supposed to tell me and show me exactly how you're feeling.
yeah,
But so then, you kind of apply that uh, outside of the sessions with, the people that you're comfortable with and the people that are willing to like hear that. There's definitely, I can't walk into the classroom and say like,
sure,
whatever. I can't start. There's time and place, and you find
yes,
where those places are. And back to what I said about having to vent both good, bad. Like, hey, what's going on? Ah, nothing. Blah. It's out. It's done.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then hopefully whoever you're saying that to is like, like they can shake their head and maybe chuckle
Sure.
or whatever. But
Nice.
but
You
kind of
become a friend that your friends warn all your other new friends about, right?
what's yeah, exactly.
Hey, this is Kevin. I'll apologize for him later.
Yeah.
And yeah, right.
You don't want to be that guy. That's for uh, like to think that hopefully I'm the one doing that. I really hope nobody's having to apologize for me. Um, but so strategies against, of course, you eventually found out, I'm done with this, right? This is getting to be a bit much. I have to go at this. That eventually led to you going to that facility in Guelph, Homewood, is it? And so, what was the time between realizing, acknowledging, and then maybe resisting, like sharing that with the people who could help you? And
Yeah.
what did that process look like?
It took a few weeks, because I mean, it's very institutionalized. It's lunchtime is lunchtime, and right, all the depression people walk down for lunch, and then over in the corner are the people with eating disorders, and they literally have a couple crackers and a grape, and they have to eat it and then sit there for 2 hours in front of someone so they don't puke it out. Like, I mean, so
Hmm.
you see the worst of the worst, and so I think the first couple of weeks I was calculating, I'm like, where do I fit in here? I mean, um, they had a ward there that were like the people dangerous to themselves or to others.
Mhm.
Um, and then it was just, you wake up to screaming at night. I mean, it was really a stark,
Right.
a stark reality of how bad it is out there. And then, for the first week or 10 days, I was just kind of, okay, computing where I am. How do I survive 60 days at this? And then I spent probably the second week getting to know some people who I kind of identified with as being more normal, like I was. Quickly found out that they weren't.
Yeah.
And then in week 3, I kind of started to find that some of the people who I thought were the worst off in week 1 were the closest to where I was in my own figuring myself out kind of thing. So it was kind of unique. Who I identified with at first was not who I stuck with long term there. So probably in about week 3, I kind of had my own little group. And after supper, when you'd have your free time, we'd sit around and talk or go down to the pool or the gym or whatever we were doing. And I started to realize that some of these people who had horrific stories made mine look like a cakewalk. Lifelong abuse, these things, and they were fighting. They were fighting their asses off to survive. And I don't remember the moment, but I remember thinking, holy man, if it was this one lady from BC, and she'd had a horrible life under her father with abuse, sexual abuse, awful stuff. And then her husband, after a few good years, the same kind of thing with abuse. And so she'd just been beaten and tossed around her whole life. And she was the sweetest lady I've still ever met, I think. And she wanted to be better, and she didn't see negative in the world. During the afternoon, we'd go for a walk, and we'd walk to Safeway to get something or a snack or whatever. And I'd walk and we just talk about things. And I'm like, how are you not? How do you still have positivity? How do you still get up in the morning? With all, and now having been in some group sessions with her, I've really heard it right out of her mouth with everything going on up here. How is this lady capable of, surviving? How has she even gotten here? And how is she here? And no, it's when you get there. So another thing too is there was a big cutting point. So there was probably 20% of the people there wanted to get better. 80%, it was like, hey, this is a vacation. I don't have to go to work. I don't have to parent. I don't. And I'm like, you're taking a bed, from someone who really wants to be here. So there was a quick segregation there of the group of us who wanted to be there and we're going to take advantage of every opportunity there. And the ones, we had people who would be there Monday to Friday. And then because they lived close, they weren't even an inpatient. So they'd stay at home and they'd go home and do exactly what they complained about all Monday to Friday, right? They go to the bar 2 nights. And so every Monday was like reset. So, as I started to connect with these people who I knew were there for the full 60, who really wanted to get better and stuff, it started to open my eyes that, hey, my scenario, although tough for me, is a lot better and a lot brighter than a lot of these people. So if they can do it, you know what I mean? That gave me kind of a boost to get my ass in gear, to start figuring myself out. And then it also too, I sort of became the voice of, so in your kind of class, in your graduating class, I guess they call it, you have a weekly meeting and you do all these things. And I kind of became the chairperson of our group. And so I did all the talking at the meeting kind of. And so it was nice because I got to take on, it allowed me to separate my own mind. Okay, they're in worse scenarios than I am, but they inspired me to be better myself. And then I was able to be a role to them. It's hard to explain. It allowed me to separate myself from not being that far gone. Right. But the whole time being very close to the people who were that far gone to give me some perspective on where I was. And some mornings when I woke up, I was like, oh man, and then I'd get up and I'd see that lady from BC already coming back from doing an hour on the bike, and I was like, okay, Chris, come on, man, be better today, and so the people there that I met inspired me and helped me as much as the doctors did. What the doctors taught me, I've used in the years since, and what those people taught me, I've used probably even more. And so it was a very interesting progression in those 6 weeks, or in those 2 months, those 60 days. You went from broken to self-realization to self-reflection to starting to figure out how to fix yourself to starting to see the light. And then each week some new people would come in and they would be at rock bottom. And I was 7 weeks in, and I would take 1 or 2 under my wing, kind of, that I saw had that energy and saw who wanted it. Right. And you'd help them through that first couple of weeks. And then I look back and I'm like, holy shit, that one guy, my first week, that was me to this person, you know what I mean? So at the time I didn't even realize these few people were in 12th grade and I was in 9th grade. And now, here I am as a senior helping out the freshmen. And so it took a couple, maybe a year after, until I looked back and started putting names to, hey, that was my guy in week 1. This was my gal in week 2, and I've stayed connected with a lot of them, and some haven't fared well. Some are no longer with us, and some have gone on to amazing things. One of the girls I was in there with, she had the worst case of OCD I've ever seen in my life. She rubbed her skin off her hands in the shower one time because she couldn't get them clean. She couldn't climb the stairs at her house. They had to install an elevator. It was insane, the stories she would tell me. And her and I were very close in there. She recently graduated. She's now a doctor, psychologist. She's been doing, around North America, selling out these talks she does about her journey and stuff. She's thriving, and all the while still dealing with the OCD. She's just, when I listen to her story, I'm like, holy man, all how I feel plus all of that, and you're still killing it, So it was inspiring with certain people, and the structure of it was great. Obviously, having no outside pressures while you're in there is a big thing.
Right.
You know, you don't have to go to work. You don't have to make the kids dinner. You don't have to drive the kids to school, right? You can focus. But I think with that opportunity, you know, you have to use it and take it and run with it and take advantage of it.
Now, of course, how many years ago was that you went?
2011.
2011.
Mm.
So that's
July of 2011. So just coming up on 10 years.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so 10 years ago, you asked for help, you get through that, you go on to make the video, which of course there'll be links to on here and stuff. All of which very scary things, but wouldn't trade it.
Not at all. No way,
Right.
man. It's you know, that any part of that journey, without if you take any chunk of that out, I'm not where I am. You know, I mean, the self-realization part of it, the learning about yourself, learning how to fight your own brain when you have to, and learning how to go with it when you can. Just a lot of things. You know, it's. I think, what do they say, to become an expert at something, you need to hours or something is the same.
Yeah, 10,000 hours.
Something like this. It's something like this. It's a lot more than 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
24 hours a day. It doesn't take long to add up.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, when I found 2014, I was lucky because the guy who filmed it and his girlfriend, they kind of did the whole part of it. I just had to talk, and they put it together and made it look as professional as it was, and cut it and did all the stuff to, you know, to really kind of make it flow. And it was, I remember making it and being gung-ho about making it. And yes, we've got it all on film. And he's like, okay, give me like 2 weeks and I'll have it ready. And then he sent it over. He's like, tell me what you think. And I watched it, and like, I almost had a panic attack. I was going to puke. I was just like, I can't go out. Like, I mean, you know, I'm very, very vulnerable in a few parts of that video. Just, you know, talking about things that most people in my life don't even know happened and stuff. And I started to think, well, what's the reaction going to be from parents? And, you know, I mean, it was just, but the reaction came back like 99% supportive. And, I think just that moment when I realized I could just be honest like that about it and talk about it, and so many people just took a part of it and totally got it. Like, you know what I mean? And people were talking to me about their own things. And a lot of people like to oh, hey, I sort of feel like that, but not like as bad as you were. Right.
Yeah.
Well, they tiptoe into the discussion, and you can tell though they're really wanting to talk. So yeah, man, it was honestly, you know, out of all the things I've done in my life, stupid and not stupid, I think that's probably the thing I'm most proud of, just because there was a moment there when I was like, you know what, Nolan, he's the guy who filmed. I'm like, no, just burn it, man. I can't put that out there. I don't know, you know, the reaction, and I'm just second guessing myself and stuff. And then we just said, put it out. And I remember when he said, okay, it's on YouTube now. And I was sitting at home, and like 20 minutes later, my phone ding, and then ding, 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 ding. And then it just like was going. And I was like, oh my God. You know, and Michael Landsberg from TSN sent me a note that night saying, this is awesome. And it just started to build real quick. And it was just worth everything that it took to get there, and that we put into that, to see the effect it had on people, and how it helped some people. So, I mean, it was definitely something I don't regret doing. And it's probably my proudest thing I've done in my life so far. Yeah.
Well, and here we are, right? Because here's me, similar stance, I guess you could say. Maybe different in what you go through, what I go through. We haven't had our own chance to
Sure.
kind of compare, or you know, have that, yeah, man, me too kind of talk.
Right.
But you know, you put out that video, super inspiring, reaction amazing. I've got on to doing this, and you know, I've previously said in other videos, like, you can see the analytics on YouTube, and you see how many people actually watch it to the end, and it's only 10% of people. Right. But those 10% of people might have really needed to hear it. And then the inbox says that they definitely did. And so it's something that with every step comes the next one.
Yeah,
Of course, us being here is one of those next steps, and
sure thing.
you
Sure
know,
thing.
just really trying to encourage. And so my goal and purpose with all this is to encourage others to you know seek help for themselves, right? And acknowledging that you know I can't necessarily help anyone, but I can sure encourage them to help themselves. Um, and so I think we've covered a lot of good ground today. What what would you um, like? What's your goal coming into this? Have we kind of hit all the boxes? Do you think?
You know what? I don't think it's possible to hit all the boxes on
Yeah,
this
you're
kind of thing. I mean, you know, I one other thing I kind of wanted to touch on. It was tell me if you think I'm nuts or if you see this at all. Maybe so maybe I have a bit more history with this, you know, from 2010. I don't know when you first kind of were how long ago did you kind of come to your own senses and be like, oh man, I'm not right totally here.
well, it wasn't long ago that I kind of decided, all right, enough's enough, and that's kind of me seeking out therapy. But there's no doubt that for probably the last decade, I've been the same. It's just that I would kid myself as to how I was feeling, or you know, I'm getting drunk, or I'm you know out with the boys, but you know, like me by myself.
Yeah,
You know, like I'm always struggling when I'm by myself. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like I just did a lot of I was just kidding myself the whole time, right? And I would you know I snap at the people around me, or people could tell, and you know
yeah,
like I've had multiple coaches who like, hey, like what's going on?
right,
And I'm like, oh, nothing, right?
yeah,
Like nothing, like
yeah,
fuck off, you know what I mean? Kind of thing, like leave me
yeah,
alone, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
a lot of pushing away, you
Sure.
know, and that's my parents, that's teachers, that's you know pretty much
Yep.
everyone around me. It affects my relationships big time, and I got to thank a lot of people for the ones that didn't kind of go away when I pushed them.
For this, yeah.
Um, but I think we're getting back onto what you were asking, I guess, right? Because you were gonna ask something else, and then you
Yeah,
asked that.
yeah, yeah. I'm just kind of curious. Like, so you'd say like 2018 has kind of been like you've started to progress, is what I call it. Like this is kind of your, you know, you're starting
Yeah,
to.
within the last definitely year, I've you know, and I wouldn't say necessarily progressed, but taken that internal look
Sure.
to take accountability for how I'm feeling
Yeah.
and understand ways to avoid feeling like that.
Yeah.
And so there's no doubt, like you said, like there is no curing, there's no, you know, it's just managing.
Sure.
And so, well, how many good days do I have versus bad days now?
Right.
Right. Well, you know, and it's a plus minus, right? It's kind of going up, it's kind of going down, and
Yeah.
now we have these circumstances that everyone gets to deal with, the whole COVID thing, right? And so, like, you know, I'm scared for how people are handling it because I feel like I'm equipped for it, and I don't think I've handled it well at all. And so I'm really worried about somebody
Yeah.
who isn't equipped
That's
for
a
it. Or,
dynamite point. That's a dynamite point,
yeah,
and that's something I've thought the exact same. I'm like, man, I have 10 years experience helping myself, and I
right,
have 6 years experience helping others.
right,
Some of these days, this stuff has just got me like on my knees, like, oh my god, this has to end. And then I start to think of people who have zero awareness and zero, and have maybe just found out this year about themselves a little bit,
right,
and it
right.
scares the shit out of me, you know. And
Scares the
so
shit out of me.
yeah, but so the kind of that one point I wanted to get to though was it's so when I started coming up 2011, when I started coming up, it's like a game, right? Like when I first got called up to the show, I did my video about how crazy I was, you know. So, but and so back then it was such a passe subject, right? I go, ooh, don't
Right,
talk
right.
about, oh my god. And then we did a the Mood Disorders Manitoba gave me an award for kind of a, it was, I can't remember exactly what the, but it was some like people you don't expect to do this stuff sort of thing, and because it
Okay,
was
yeah, yeah,
with neck tattoos and stuff, it's just like you don't expect those people to have depression. And so I remember when I got the award, I was talking at this big, and there was 600 people at this big dinner and stuff, and it was for all mood disorders, so there's everyone there, and I was rattled for like 2 weeks. I'm like, what do I say about this? You know, I mean, the video says everything I need to say about me.
yeah. Right,
How do I then receive an award for something I never wanted an award for? I don't feel award worthy. I just, you know, it helped me more than I felt it helped anyone else. So it was almost a selfish thing I did to feel better. and now they want to give me an award for, you know, creating awareness. And I was kind of rattled about this whole talk because I got up and I'm like, are people going to look up and expect me to change their lives? Or I'm like, how are they going to look at me like a doctor? I don't know, how are they going to look at me? And I kept, so I finally said, no, screw it, I'm just going to be me. And so I opened up my thing. I said, you know what? Congratulations to everyone here, but the real heroes are the people who put together an awards banquet for mental health. Because I'm like, the OCD people are still trying to find the perfect parking lot spot. The depressive people probably didn't show up tonight, right? Yeah, and I listed off all the things and how that would affect making an organized dinner. And the place just started pissing their pants laughing because it was bringing some lightness, right, to this usually a terrible talk. And so kind of coming out of that, you know, as the discussion around mental health became more accepted and more normal, you know, and people started getting less and less concerned about how it might affect their job or things like that, you know, it became kind of the new cool thing.
Okay.
You know, so when in 2010, you would never tell anybody you had a mental health issue. In 2016, people were using it as a way to get off work.
Right.
And it's very similar to the whole COVID thing where the new hot button is, I think I might have COVID. I can't work this weekend.
Right.
You know, and so it's like stolen valor of a really shitty disease. And that part of it has been tough for me because, you know, when you talk about stolen valor and things like that, I mean, I've been in the trenches with this disease. I have seen people lost to this disease, and I've seen how it ravages families, how it ravages people, you know, and then to see it used as a wild card to get out of a shift at work or out of an exam you didn't study for and stuff really pissed me off. You know, and now we're seeing another version of that with COVID where, you know, if you want to go party with your friends for the weekend or whatever, you just tell your boss, hey, I think I might have COVID. The boss goes, hey, take 72 hours, you know. There's no proving it, anything else. So it's just, you know, I think in all this, I don't want the serious message of both of those things, COVID and mental health, to get lost by the people who abuse it and things like that. So I just think I want people to be aware that there are people that are really struggling with mental health. There are people that are very sick with COVID. Don't let all the noise distract from that, you know, and just give, especially mental health. I think COVID's going to get figured out here and stuff, but mental health is never not going anywhere. Especially mental health. Give it the credit it deserves as a very tough opponent. You know, don't assume it's going to be an easy fight. Especially now, I fear for people as well. I feel the exact same way. I don't know if COVID had hit in 2010. I doubt I'm here talking to you. I mean, like I would not have been equipped. I would have, who knows what, you know. And so I think there's dark days ahead for a lot of people. And so things like what you're doing, and it's kind of, you know, I think one of the reasons I reached out to you on this is because I kind of felt like it was time to toss my hat back in the ring a little bit here because of what we're going to see. Right. And we're seeing it, and I can't imagine 3, 6 months, 12 months out from now. So I think now more than ever, it needs guys like you and I to, you know, to be here, to be available, even if people can just watch and go, oh, there's a couple, you know, rough and tumble sports guys who can sit down and talk about this and stuff. So maybe it enables them to have a conversation. We never even know about it, you know, and maybe they sit down and, you know, so I do see some real great progressions where you can talk about it with a sports team. I talk about with my Pee Wee team I coach here in Dallas, and, you know, and the kids actually listen. You know, if I tell them what our breakout with X's and O's on the board, they're like looking around. Yeah. When I start talking about this stuff, because they have an answer, they have, you know, I mean, so right down to 12 years old, you know, you can get attention talking about this, and I think it's as important or more important now more than ever that we continue these kind of things and really keep it out there and be a lifeline.
Yeah, it's a really delicate balance we're in right now with the whole physical health of people not getting disease and mental health of people getting sick. And I think that, you know, you ask anybody and they'll say, as long as you got your health,
right?
Which one? You know, we need both of them, except you know, if taking care of my mental health has put me at physical risk, well, then I don't know what to do. And, you know, if this whole like putting the physical health on a pedestal is really sacrificing my mental health, well, then, hey, you know what I mean? Like if you're not isolating, if you're not following restrictions, I can't even fault you.
Yeah.
Can't even fault you. You know, it's such a tough, difficult balance. I think, you know, and I'm not, the laws are the laws, whatever it is in your region, whatever it is, wherever you are, that's it. Hey, but if, you know, next thing, you know, the stories about you, uh, getting a ticket for being out in public, I don't fault you. They do, you know, they have to hold you accountable. They have to enforce rules, but like,
Yeah.
you know, there's, you know, at what cost, you know, except it is the balance. We don't know, you
Yeah.
know, and, you know, I guess to your point about the disease, and you said people are getting very sick where I am in, you know, where, you know, in Dryden, you know, I don't know a single person. I found out the first person I found out who had it yesterday is a teammate of mine from Belfast,
Yeah.
right? Because we're in this little neat little pocket halfway between Winnipeg and T-Bay.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
far
Yeah.
away from it all. And so to me, it's unreal. It's not, nobody's sick in my mind because of where I am.
Yeah.
But then I talked to my buddy and I said, man, like, you got it. I have to talk to you. Like, how are you? Oh, you know, like,
Yeah.
me and however many other teammates got it. And we played a team. They had this many guys get it. I'm like, man, like
Yeah.
that's real. You know,
Yeah.
it's unreal to me, but
Yeah. It here in, I mean, I'm in Dallas, so we're in Texas. We're in the hotbed of it.
yeah,
You know, it's kind of the Texas way that it's the Wild West,
right.
and they're not going to let anything like it stop it. But it's become almost so normalized here. I mean, we have, I mean, as numerous as 7-Elevens, we have drive-through 15-minute testing.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Literally, I'll go to the store to get groceries, and if I have a sniffle, I'll just whip through the testing on my way home. They swab me, I pull over, they text my phone, say, no, you're good to go. So I mean,
Wow.
you
Wow.
know, we've just got these development along with kind of going rogue against the norm of shutting down everything. We've kind of also taken on a lot of responsibility to develop these quick testing stations. And you know, I've been tested 4 or 5 times in the last 5 months because I'm with my hockey team and my kids, and you know, just I don't know. I feel very fortunate to live where I am right now, where I mean, I can still go outside and do whatever I want. The gyms are open. You know, the grocery stores, the restaurants, they're at 50%, but you can still go out and have a beer and a burger if you need to and watch the game. You know, somewhat normal things where,
Mm.
you know, to have no access to any of that is for some people who just, you know, some people when they have a burger and a beer on Saturday nights and watch the Habs and the Leafs play at a bar, that's their social. That's their
Right.
social time where, you know, that fuels them for the next 6 days of getting through their alone time. So having all of that taken away is just, it's terrifying, man. It's terrifying, and I don't know what the end result's going to be. But you're already seeing stuff from Japan where the suicide rate is past the, you know, the COVID death rate, and
Right. Right.
I'm scared that might become the norm here for the next little while.
Um, you were getting on about a point that sprung a thought. We didn't get into it. I think you were talking about difference in when, say, you went through it, and now when I'm going through it, and kind of the differences, and you know, at least as you were saying that, I was imagining a question around like the idea of, you know, what it's like now versus then,
Yeah.
or maybe you know, how open it is versus then. Um, and the idea of toughness came up to me because I had a discussion with a friend of mine the other day asking, like, you know, like as a hockey player and as an athlete, like, you know, you have it so ingrained in you to be tough,
Sure.
right? But I want to stress to people that, you know, as tough as you can be on the ice or at work or whatever, doing something physically demanding, right? Being tough in the sense of working on yourself in a mental health sense has nothing to do with the work, the grit, the, you know, the on ice, right? And so I really want to create some dialogue around how, you know, yeah, if you're meant to be a tough guy, go be that tough guy in that scene.
Sure.
Has nothing to do with being a tough guy away from that. And that's not how you be tough when you're away from that, right? Sure, you
No.
win 10 out of 10 puck battles, but it doesn't mean that
Yeah.
you don't go home and feel pain from something that's going on exclusive to you.
Sure. No, 100%, man. And that's, you know, I think kind of as, you know, as these things change, you know, as society changes and this becomes more normal, you know, I think you're going to see more people from really surprising roles, you know, what they do every day, finding out, you know, you see like a lot like Robin Williams, see a lot of stand-up comics are
Right.
suffering the worst, you know, so you kind of see these polar opposites in who they are, who you think they are, and what's really going on, you know. So I think you'll start to see those kind of things. I mean, a lot of those kind of feel good jobs, like whether it's professional athletes or, you know, rock and roll singers, whatever, those kind of like really cool jobs, you know, I think it's showing there's a history of people who are really suffering inside,
Right.
go to do things that outwardly appear like they're fine, and they're doing the best out there. So I think that's a good, you know, that awareness only comes with time on these kind of things. And I think that's something we've become more aware of now, that, you know, some of our brightest, funniest, toughest people out there are the most affected by it. So I think being able to train an eye to that now, I think I'm hopefully going forward, we don't lose as many of those people, because, you know, we're aware now that your outward appearance has zero to do with what's going on the inside, and true toughness comes, you know, at 3 a.m. on a Sunday when you're lying in your bed and can't sleep, wondering why about everything in the world. You know, you want to put me in a jiu-jitsu match and have a guy choking me and me not tap. That's the easiest thing in my day. Right. When I'm awake at 3 a.m. That's, you know, I mean, so yeah, you're right that, you know, the contrast from toughness to true toughness mm-hmm. is really under the microscope with this kind of thing, because the toughest thing I've ever had to do has been get out of bed some days in my life. And that includes all this real dumb shit I've done that
right.
took a lot of toughness, you know? And so, yeah, that's a really good point. That, yeah, I think we're learning, we're slowly learning. We're seeing trends and we're starting to figure this out. And that's definitely been an improvement from 2010.
Right.
You know, everyone's shocked that Robin Williams is what he was. Mm-hmm. I don't think another guy in that scenario, it would ever shock us again. Right. You know, so we're starting to learn about it and how it affects the most outwardly positive and happy people, or at least that's how they appear to be. So
what sets you up for success? What gives you the best chance at setting yourself up for success? Because we all know that there's times where, you know, it's just a bad day and you've done what you've had to do and then it doesn't go. But what is it that you do that sets you up for the best chance at that?
You know what? The two biggest things are I love going back to the small wins, and whether that's eating breakfast, making your bed, having a shower, going for a 2-mile walk, jumping on the treadmill, just on flat, throwing on a TV show, right? Just those small things
right.
that kind of distract you how you feel in the morning and springboard you into your day. That's huge for me. Huge. That's huge for me on the maintenance side. And then just becoming okay and learning to forgive myself if I have a shitty day, you know, and not let it turn into a week or a month of shitty, because I just beat myself up over, you know what I mean? So I think we've become so ingrained in pattern to Monday to Friday from 9 to 5, you should be working. And, you know, this is when you should be doing this is when you should be doing that. So, you know, even down to the weather, like if I'm having a shitty day and it's raining outside, I'm like, yes, I don't feel guilty because there's nothing really I could do outside. You know what I mean? But if it's sunny and bright and you hear people at the park, you're like, oh God, I'm a loser just lying here on the couch, you know? So there's these little things like the weather or the time of day or what you're supposed to be doing in the social norms that can affect how I'm feeling about how I'm feeling. And so, you know, just having the wherewithal to, whether it be a Saturday and it's raining, or a Sunday and it's beautiful, or a Wednesday when everyone else is at work, if it's a bad day for me, it doesn't have a time, it doesn't have a date on it, it's just a bad day. Right. We'll throw on 9 episodes of something, crush a season of something, have something to eat, and get back out on the horse the next morning and try to get a few of those wins the next morning to have a better day the next day. And so the small maintenance things, the small wins here, and then the forgiveness and taking it easy on myself when I have a bad one over here are kind of the two most important things. Now down the middle is about 90% of the work, but that's a whole other conversation, you know, of different strategies and different things like that I'd love to have. But
Right.
Those are the two keys. Those the 10% of the good days and the 10% of the bad days. Where how I go about it. Little small wins. Forgive myself if it's not
Right.
a good, you know.
No, I definitely think that we could spend a lot of time talking about exactly that. I think that the two that you especially named in the forgiveness, that's something I would love to like
Yeah,
extensively speak to you about
sure.
as somebody who I appreciate your time in doing this and think that we could that's something I know I need help with, because I kick my own ass. You know what I mean? I over nothing. But
Yeah,
it's the small wins that keep me from kicking my own ass.
right.
And so, like my morning routine, Christmas break, I had 2 weeks at Christmas. Well, that
Yeah,
totally like crushed my schedule because now
yeah, yeah,
now I don't have that work day to build around.
yeah.
Now I have to build a whole day. Well,
Right.
and so now it's like, well, go to bed for what and wake up for what, right? And so Christmas was the worst. I'm finally crawled out of it. What did I do to crawl out of it? I said, all right, you know what? I have to set myself up to win. Well, and so my morning schedule since is 10 minutes on the minute, and it's just I think the first thing is get up, drink of water.
Yeah,
Okay, next one is stretch. Next
sure.
one is shower with a cold shower. Cold showers have been wicked for me
Yeah,
because then you're freezing for the next little bit and it's forcing you to breathe. Nothing I have in a lifelong wear of this because it's got you dialed. So I can put the phone away and still see my schedule. And by the time I get to work, I've been deep breathing for an hour. Nowhere it says meditate, but
yeah,
like I'm calm.
sure.
I get to work with a clean slate
Yeah,
rather than waking up and going to work and then having a full cup. And then of course that's getting into like the anxiety side of things, right? I
you're
get
guilty
to
for
work
even in there. Yeah,
and somebody says hello to me and I'm like, right? Like
yeah, yeah.
I'm not ready for this. So yeah, I'm not ready for anything. Right? I haven't like set myself up for the day. But so by the time now when I get to work, like, I'm totally almost like at a reset. And
Yeah.
so I guess I acknowledge that when I wake up, it doesn't mean I'm reset. That's not reset at all. I wake up and now I'm thinking about all the things that I went to bed thinking about if I had a late night or
Yeah,
just these things. But
yeah, for
I love
sure.
those. Those are two. The forgiveness is one I really, really need to work on.
Yeah,
Uh, and the small wins is as small as you can, as many as you can identify and pat yourself on the back for.
mhm,
Well, that's you praising yourself rather than just
100%.
talking. Like
Yeah,
never bullied somebody as hard as I bully myself. You know what I mean? Like
right.
the self talk is so
Yeah,
huge.
yeah,
And if you can keep it from being negative
sure.
and as negative as it can get,
Yeah,
then that's huge.
absolutely.
You Um, so yeah, no. Thank you so much for everything. If there's any last comments,
Jesus, we busted out 75 minutes almost.
yeah, yeah.
Didn't even scratch
Well,
the surface.
what's that? Sorry.
Didn't even scratch the surface yet.
Well, it's just kind of like your story. It's a Netflix series, like
Yeah, right.
that's
Hoping
it.
to be canceled here.
Um,
No, you know what, man? Why don't we absolutely do this again in a month or 6 weeks or whatever, and let's jot down some stuff that we both touched on. You said some interesting things tonight too that I'm going to ponder. I'm sure while I'm
yeah,
on in bed, and then let's jot down a few things. Let's revisit some stuff here, and
yeah,
no
yeah. Again, thanks so much for your time and
worries, man. I thank you for reopening this and kind of giving me a reason to jump back into the throw my hat back in the mix. I love doing this stuff, and I'm passionate about it. And, I think it's coming up. It's needed more than ever. So
yeah,
anything you need from me, anything you want me to do, just let me know. And let's definitely plan on session 2 here in the
yeah.
next.
That's sweet. The follow up would be great. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate the support. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. See here a link to anything that's happened thus far with the campaign and where you'll find anything else that'll continue to happen with it. Hope you guys enjoyed this interview. Don't be shy to like, share, comment, all that good stuff to ensure that we can continue having these conversations within our communities, our homes, and amongst each other. Understand that you're not alone and reach out in a time of need. Also, see here a link to my Just Giving page in support of Action Mental Health Northern Ireland, as well as stay tuned for the following credits showing a list of resources here in Dryden and surrounding area.